They say the dead don't talk, but out here in Denton Hollow, Texas, you learn fast that silence can whisper louder than a scream. Name's Marvin. I drive a taxi in a town so small it doesn't even show up right on most maps. If you blink while passing through, you'd miss it. A couple of diners, a broken-down gas station, and streets that seem to loop back on themselves like a snake chasing its tail. Out here, the stars hang heavy over your head, and the air smells like dust and something older, something sour no wind can ever carry away. I didn't grow up here. Moved in about 6 years ago, when I thought I could outrun the wreck my life had turned into. New place, new start, right? Only Denton Hollow didn't feel new. It felt worn thin, like a town that should have died a long time ago, but didn't know how to lie down and stay dead. Driving a cab here isn't what you'd think. There's not a lot of work. Maybe a few old folks who don't drive anymore, or a drunk kid getting kicked out of the one bar that refuses to close. Still, I get by. The thing is, there are rules. Strange ones. They aren't posted anywhere, but every driver learns them quick. Not because someone tells you. No, you learn because of what happens if you don't. Never pick up a fare after 11 unless they call you by name. Never accept cash that's wet. If someone hums a tune you don't recognize, stop the car and tell them to get out. And if you ever see a second face in the rearview mirror, keep driving. No matter what. I don't know where these rules came from. Maybe they were stitched together from the wreckage of bad stories told in hushed voices. Maybe they were written by someone who didn't live long enough to explain. Either way, nobody breaks them. Not if you want to stay breathing right. Tonight, I had a bad feeling. The kind that coils low in your gut and tightens slow. There wasn't anything special about the evening. Just the same dead streets, the same burnt orange glow bleeding out of the old lampposts. But something felt off, like the town was holding its breath, waiting for me to screw up. I rolled my cab down Main Street, the tires humming a low tune against the cracked asphalt. My shift was almost over. Just one more loop around town before heading home. I passed Mrs. Dugan's diner, lights off, chairs flipped onto tables. Past the church with its crooked cross that seemed to lean a little more every week. Past the empty lot where the wind kicked up little devils of dust that danced under the streetlights. Nothing out of place, and yet everything felt wrong. As I rounded the corner by Hollow Creek, my radio crackled, a dry whisper through the static. I reached for it instinctively. Then it hit me, no one should be calling this late. And certainly not using my name. Marvin, the voice rasped through the speaker, soft and slow. I need a ride. I froze. My hand hovered over the mic. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat too loud, too fast. No address. No destination. Just my name. I pulled over under the broken streetlight, engine idling, and stared at the radio like it might bite me. The rules clawed their way up from the back of my mind. Never pick up a fare after 11 unless they call you by name. The dashboard clock glowed at me, 11:27 p.m. For a long moment, I sat there, breathing shallow, the night pressing in through the cracked windows of my cab. I could just drive away. Pretend I never heard it. Go home. Lock the doors. Sleep. But that name, my name, clung to the air inside the car like smoke. And against every inch of common sense I had, I picked up the mic. Where to? I asked. The radio hissed again, and then silence. I thought maybe the call had dropped. Maybe I imagined it all. I was about to lower the mic when a figure stepped out of the darkness, right into the weak beam of my headlights. Tall, thin, dressed in dark clothes soaked through like he had been standing in a river. His face was pale, almost blurred around the edges like a bad photograph. He smiled, and somehow, without hearing a word, I knew he was the one who had called me. I unlocked the doors, and just like that, I broke the first rule. The night had been slow, just the way I liked it. Denton Hollow didn't give you much, but it gave you quiet, and after a long day behind the wheel, quiet was gold. I had parked my cab near the old diner, half hidden in the mist that always rolled in after sunset. The clock on the dashboard read 11:22 p.m. I was about to call it a night when the radio crackled, sharp and sudden, making me jump. Cab 7, a voice said. I leaned forward and pressed the button. Go ahead. There was a pause, then a voice, low and calm, came through. I need a ride, he said. Name and location? I asked, routine slipping off my tongue. The voice hesitated. You're Marvin Grant, he said. I froze. My hand hovered over the switch. Yeah, I said slowly. That's right. No one ever said the driver's name. That wasn't how it worked. The voice gave me a crossroads near the woods. A place people avoided once the sun dipped behind the hills. Everything inside me screamed no. The rules rattled through my mind like loose change in a can. No pickups after 11 unless you're called by name. And yet, I found myself turning the key, firing up the engine. The cab shuddered to life, and the headlights pierced the thick mist ahead. I pulled out onto Main Street. The town looked different this late. Empty, like a movie set after everyone had gone home. The streetlights flickered. A dog barked somewhere far off, but otherwise, there was nothing but the sound of my tires rolling over cracked asphalt. I reached the spot in less than 10 minutes. There he was, standing alone under the dying glow of a street lamp. He wore a long, dark coat that looked too heavy for the warm night. One hand gripped a soggy, dripping duffel bag. His other hand hung loose by his side, almost too still. I rolled the window down a crack. "You call for a cab?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He stepped closer. His face came into the light, and for a moment, I wished it hadn't. Something about him was wrong. Not in any way you could point out. He looked normal enough. Brown hair, pale skin, sharp eyes. But his smile didn't touch his eyes. It just sat there, plastered on his face like a mask. "Yeah," he said. "Thanks for coming, Marvin." Hearing my name from his mouth made the back of my neck prickle. Still, against every screaming nerve in my body, I reached over and unlocked the door. He climbed into the back seat, dropping the wet bag at his feet with a heavy splat. The smell of damp earth and something metallic filled the cab. I tried breathing through my mouth. "Where to?" I asked, glancing at him in the mirror. He smiled wider. "Just drive," he said. I hated when people said that. Hated it more tonight. I pulled away from the curb. The cab's wheels hissed on the wet street. The man leaned back, his head almost disappearing into the shadows of the back seat. For a while, neither of us said anything. The radio crackled now and then, but no words came through. Just static, like someone whispering too soft to understand. I focused on the road ahead, the lines blurring under the cab's headlights. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him tap his fingers lightly against his knee. A soft rhythm, like a song without words. Then he started humming. At first it was low, almost too soft to hear, but it grew louder. A strange, winding tune, the kind that crawls under your skin and stays there. It wasn't any song I knew. It wasn't anything I wanted to know. Rule number 3. If a passenger hums a tune you don't recognize, you stop the car and get out. Walk away. No matter what. My hands tightened on the wheel. Sweat beaded on my forehead. My heart hammered against my ribs, hard enough I thought he might hear it. The man kept humming, smiling in the dark. I stared straight ahead, refusing to look back. The road stretched out in front of me, endless and empty, leading nowhere I wanted to go. And still I drove on. I kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror. The man sat too still, his hands resting neatly on top of the soaked duffel bag on his lap. His face stayed hidden under the brim of a dusty old hat, the kind you'd see on a scarecrow. He hadn't said a word since he got into the cab, and the silence pressed against my ears like heavy cotton. The road stretched ahead, cracked and faded, disappearing into the darkness beyond my headlights. Out here, between Denton Hollow and the woods, there was nothing but miles of dead grass and the occasional dying tree. No houses, no lights, no help. I told myself not to think about it. Just drive. Get him where he needed to go and be done with it. Then he started humming. At first it was soft, just a low, broken hum, like an old music box turning on its last breath. I thought maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it was just the wind leaking through the cracked windows. But the sound grew clearer. The melody twisted through the air, a slow, rising tune that didn't belong to any song I'd ever heard. It was wrong somehow, like a lullaby meant to put you to sleep and never let you wake up. The hairs on the back of my neck stood straight up. My hands tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I remembered the rule. If a passenger hums a tune you don't know, you drop them off. No questions. No looking back. My mouth went dry. I glanced at him again through the mirror. His head was tilted slightly to the side, as if he was listening to something only he could hear. His lips barely moved, but the sound filled the cab, sticky and slow. I slowed the car, thinking about pulling over, about kicking him out right there on the side of the road. My heart pounded against my ribs, loud enough I swore he could hear it too. But I didn't stop. I told myself it would be fine. I told myself I was just being superstitious. Rules made by old men scared of their own shadows. Stories to keep cab drivers in line. I wasn't about to throw a man out into the night because of some humming. Still, the tune crawled deeper into my head. The longer he hummed, The more the road ahead seemed to blur, the darker the night seemed to get. I shook my head hard and rubbed my eyes, but it didn't help. That's when I noticed it. There was something moving in the rearview mirror. Something that shouldn't be there. For a split second, I saw it, a second face. Pale, stretched thin, grinning from ear to ear. It hovered just over the man's shoulder, its eyes black and bottomless. I jerked the wheel, and almost sent us into a ditch. The man stopped humming. Silence filled the cab again, heavy and suffocating. "Problem, driver?" he asked, his voice smooth and cold. I swallowed hard. My mouth barely worked. "No, just a pothole." He said nothing more. He just stared straight ahead, his hands still resting calmly on that soaked bag, as if nothing had happened. I pressed my foot harder on the gas pedal, desperate to get away from that mirror, from that second face that I prayed I hadn't really seen. I should have dropped him off. I should have followed the rule. But by then it was already too late. The night had a strange weight to it, like the sky was hanging lower than it should. My cab's headlights cut through the thick darkness, but even the beams seemed tired, barely stretching a few feet ahead. I kept glancing at the stranger in the back seat through the mirror. He wasn't doing much, just staring out the window with that soaked duffel bag pressed against his side. But there was something wrong about the way he sat there, too still, like a painting that might move if you blinked. The town slipped by outside the windows, empty sidewalks, darkened stores, and a single flickering streetlight that buzzed like an angry wasp. I reached for the radio on instinct, craving some noise, anything to fill the silence. A blast of static exploded from the speakers, sharp and crackling. I jumped a little, my hand jerking back like I had touched a hot stove. I twisted the knob, trying to find a station. All I got was more static, sometimes thicker, sometimes thin and hissing. Then between the fuzz, I heard it, my name. Marvin. It came soft at first, like a breath against my ear. I froze, one hand still on the dial. I glanced at the rearview mirror. The stranger hadn't moved, still gazing into the night like he belonged to it. "Marvin." The radio whispered again, and this time it was clearer. Too clear. "Who's there?" I croaked, feeling my throat tighten. For a second, silence. Just the hum of the tires on the old cracked road. Then a voice I recognized broke through the static, rough and commanding. "Sheriff Alex." "Marvin," he said, his voice low and sharp. "You're carrying more than you can handle. Correct your mistake." I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles going white. My heart pounded so loud I thought the stranger would hear it. "What do you mean?" I asked the radio, feeling stupid for even trying. More static. Then Alex again, slower this time, almost like he was warning a child about to step off a cliff. "Drop him. Now. Or it won't just be you paying the price." I stared out at the empty road ahead. It stretched on, straight and narrow, disappearing into the darkness like a mouth waiting to swallow me whole. My stomach twisted into a tight knot. I thought about the rules. Never pick up a fare after 11. Never accept wet cash. Never trust a passenger who hums a tune you don't know. I'd already broken 2 of them. I looked again at the mirror. For a moment, I swear, I saw a second face beside the stranger. Pale, thin, eyes too wide, grinning. I blinked hard, and it was gone. Just the stranger, quiet as ever. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. "Where to?" I asked him, my voice shaking a little. He smiled in the mirror, not like he was happy, but like he knew something I didn't. "Just keep driving," he said softly. The radio crackled violently, then cut out completely. Silence filled the cab, heavier than before. I had a choice. Pull over and dump the stranger, like Alex said. Or keep going deeper into the dark, toward whatever was waiting for me. My hand stayed on the wheel. My foot stayed on the gas. Somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "You're already too far in." And it was right. There was no turning back now. I drove toward the old part of town, where the streetlights thinned out and the asphalt cracked like dry skin. The stranger sat quietly in the back seat, humming that cursed tune under his breath. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned pale. Every part of me screamed to pull over, to throw him out and race back into town. But something heavier than fear kept my foot on the gas. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something worse. The crossroads came into view like a bad memory. No signs, no lights. Just 4 broken roads meeting under a dead sky. I hadn't been out this way since I was a kid, and even back then, we were warned not to linger. People said the land was wrong here. That if you stayed too long, the earth itself would notice you. I eased the cab to a slow crawl. A figure stood in the center of the crossroads, illuminated by my headlights. Sheriff Alex. He wore his uniform, badge gleaming against the dark. One hand rested on his belt. The other clutched something heavy. A flashlight, maybe. Or a weapon. His face was carved into a polite smile, but his eyes were cold. Empty. I rolled down the window halfway. Cool night air rushed in, carrying the scent of dust and something fouler, like old iron. "Evening, Marvin," Alex said, voice smooth as butter on a skillet. "Looks like you picked up the wrong fare tonight." I swallowed hard. The stranger in the back seat stopped humming. The silence pressed against my skull. "I didn't have a choice," I said. My voice came out rough. "He called me by name." Alex chuckled. It was a sound with no warmth in it. "Names have power out here, son. You should have kept driving." He took a step closer. I tightened my grip on the wheel. "Hand him over," Alex said, tapping the hood of the cab lightly. "We'll make this right. You go home, forget tonight ever happened." I glanced in the rearview mirror. The stranger met my eyes, his face pale but calm. He didn't look scared. He looked expectant, like he knew this moment was coming. "You think he's the problem," the stranger said, his voice low and steady. "But he's just a symptom. Denton Hollow was bought and sold long before either of you were born." Alex's smile thinned. "Don't listen to him, Marvin. He's lying. He's dangerous." The stranger leaned forward, his voice cutting through the thick night air. "Ask him about the pact. Ask him why your grandfather disappeared without a trace." I froze. Memories stirred in the back of my mind. My grandfather, a man full of stories and warnings, gone one morning like he'd never existed. No one talked about it. No one dared. Alex shifted uncomfortably. "Don't make me force you, Marvin," he said, voice losing its slick edge. "You don't know what you're dealing with." But maybe I did. Maybe deep down I always had. The engine hummed under my feet. The crossroads stretched out before me, endless in every direction. Something unseen rustled the dry grass beyond the pavement. Watching. Waiting. I looked at Alex, at the stranger, then back at the empty road ahead. I made my choice. I slammed my foot down on the gas. The cab lurched forward, tires screaming against the cracked asphalt. I saw Alex's eyes widen, heard him shout something lost in the roar of the engine. He dove out of the way just in time as I barreled through the crossroads. The world behind me seemed to tear open at the seams. The headlights caught glimpses of things that shouldn't exist, twisted shapes, faces frozen in agony, hands clawing at the empty air. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The stranger sat back in his seat, the faintest smile playing on his lips. "You just changed everything," he said. And somehow, I knew he was right. But whether it was for better or for worse, I had no idea. Yet, the night air pressed heavy against the windshield, thicker than it had any right to be. The old crossroads loomed ahead, two dirt roads splitting off into nothing but blackness. My headlights stretched thin across the cracked asphalt, barely making a dent in the darkness. I could see him standing there. Sheriff Alex, hands in his pockets, grinning like he already knew how this was going to end. My stomach twisted. I slowed the cab to a crawl, gravel crunching under the tires. The stranger in the back seat leaned forward, his breath cold against the back of my neck. "You can't hand me over," he whispered. "If you do, you stay in the cage forever." I glanced at him through the rearview mirror. His face was calm, almost sad. There was no second face behind him now. No tricks. Just the quiet truth of what he said, sitting heavy between us. Alex stepped closer, boots scraping the road. His eyes gleamed under the flickering street lamp, but there was no light in them. Only hunger. "Evening, Marvin," he called out, voice smooth like oil. "You've got something that don't belong to you." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. "You know the rules, son," Alex said. "You break you bring ruin. But you can fix it. Easy way or hard way." He reached into his jacket, slow, deliberate. The butt of his pistol glinted under the light. The stranger touched my shoulder, gently. "You have a choice," he said. "One they never gave you before." I stared at the crossroads, at Alex, at the empty blackness yawning beyond the town. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. All my life, I thought following the rules kept us safe. Kept me safe. But now I saw it for what it was. A leash. A lie. The cab rumbled beneath me. The engine coughed, begging me to decide. Alex's hand tightened around his gun. "Last chance, Marvin," he said. I didn't think. I stomped the gas. The cab jolted forward, tires spitting gravel. I heard Alex shout, but his voice was swallowed by the roar of the engine. We sped straight through the crossroads. Straight into the dark. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the world behind us split open. The rearview mirror shattered, pieces raining into my lap. The streetlights flickered and blew out, one by one. The air turned ice cold, and a sound like 1,000 screaming voices filled the night. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The road twisted under us, warping like something alive. Trees blurred past, their branches stretching and grabbing at the cab like desperate hands. The stranger leaned back, his eyes closed, murmuring something under his breath. Maybe a prayer. Maybe a spell. I didn't know. I just kept my foot pinned to the floor. The cab jumped and bucked like a wild animal, but I held it steady. Mile after mile, into the deep black nowhere. Whatever lived in Denton Hollow, whatever had kept us caged for so long, was awake now. And it was angry. I gritted my teeth and drove faster. There was no map for where I was going. No signs, no lights, no promises. Just me, the stranger, and the open road. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't following any rules. I shouldn't have looked back. I know that now, but there's something in you, some primal instinct that pulls you to do it, even when your gut screams not to. I was halfway down that dirt road, leaving Denton Hollow behind, when I felt it. A coldness. A pressure against the back of my neck, like the air itself was thickening, heavy with something I couldn't explain. I pressed the gas pedal harder, but the car felt like it was sinking into the earth. It wasn't just the road. It wasn't just the night. Something was wrong. The world was bending, like time had turned soft, like it was an illusion, and we were all floating in it, trying to break free. "Keep driving," the stranger beside me said in that low, calm voice. But his eyes, they were locked on the rearview mirror, and I knew exactly what he saw. I couldn't stop myself. My eyes flicked back to the mirror, the same one I'd been avoiding. The thing behind us was more than just the trees. It was the trees. It was the air itself, the way the leaves shivered, even though there was no wind. They weren't just swaying, they were moving, twisting in impossible ways, like they were alive and watching us. Not just the trees, though. It was the shadows between them, dark shapes too big, too stretched, too unnatural. Something was out there, something that shouldn't exist. The trees weren't just trees anymore. They were figures. They had eyes. Their trunks curved like arms, and their branches seemed to reach toward the car, hungry, waiting. "Don't look back," the stranger hissed, gripping the seat. His fingers dug into the fabric, but his voice never wavered. It was too late. I already had. I couldn't pull my gaze away, even as the thing in the woods grew more and more distinct. It wasn't a thing made of flesh. It was something else. The outline of it shifted with every blink, like it was made from the very shadows of the world itself, bleeding into the air. It was huge, taller than anything I'd ever seen. I couldn't tell what shape it had, because it didn't have one. It was an outline, an idea, something too vast to even comprehend. But I knew it was there, standing just beyond the trees, behind the veil of branches and thick fog that seemed to gather around it like it was holding the world in place. I slammed my foot down on the accelerator. The tires screamed as they dug into the dirt, and the car lurched forward, but it didn't feel like we were moving. It felt like we were stuck in place, like the universe was playing a cruel joke and letting us think we were escaping. I looked ahead, but I could still feel it. The thing in the trees was following us. Or maybe it was pulling us back. Either way, it didn't matter. The world around us felt wrong. Even the road felt unfamiliar. The light from the headlights didn't touch the ground the way it should have, and the trees on the side of the road seemed to bend toward us, like they were closing in. The stranger didn't speak anymore. His eyes were wide, fixed on the rearview mirror. I couldn't tell if he was afraid, or if this was exactly what he expected. Maybe he knew what was coming all along. Maybe he was just waiting for it to catch up with us. I could feel my pulse thudding in my ears, and the air in the car seemed to get thinner, harder to breathe. I thought about the rules, all of them. The ones we're supposed to follow. Never pick up strangers after dark. Never take someone who hums a song you don't know. Never, under any circumstances, look back. I thought about the people who'd broken those rules and the whispers that followed them. How they were never the same afterward. How they disappeared into the night, into the woods, and never came back. This was why. This was exactly why. I wanted to scream, to ask the stranger what the hell was going on, but my mouth went dry. I wanted to ask him what he had done to bring this thing here, but the words wouldn't come. All I could do was drive. The night stretched out ahead, endless, and the road seemed to twist, like it was folding into itself. Then suddenly everything stopped. The car jerked forward, the engine sputtered, and for a moment, it felt like I was weightless. Then I saw it. A face. Not a human face, but something close. It was in the rearview mirror again, but this time, it wasn't just a reflection. It was real. A second face, pale and distorted, with hollow eyes that stared right into me, right into my soul. I could feel it watching me, following my every move. The figure in the mirror grinned, but it wasn't a smile. It was something worse. I blinked, and in that blink, everything changed. The trees had moved closer. The air had thickened. The thing in the woods was almost upon us. I slammed my foot onto the gas pedal, but the car didn't respond. It didn't matter how hard I pushed. The engine sputtered, choked, and died. The headlights flickered and went out, leaving us in complete darkness. My heart raced in my chest, and the sound of my breath was the only thing I could hear. "Get out," the stranger said quietly. I didn't argue. There was no time. We were trapped, but I didn't know what I was trapped by. The trees? The thing in the woods? Or something far worse, something beyond all of it? I opened the door, my hands shaking. The night air hit me like a slap in the face, but it wasn't cold. It was wet. Sickly. The ground beneath my feet felt soft, like it was swallowing me, pulling me down. Then I heard it, the rustling, the scratching, the unmistakable sound of something moving in the trees, closing in on us. And then the ground shook. I turned, and there it was, standing in the clearing. It wasn't even human. It wasn't anything that could be described by words. But I knew one thing, it was real. And it was coming for us. The stranger took a step back, but he wasn't afraid. He was waiting, just as he had been all along. I took a deep breath, and for the first time I understood. It wasn't the rules that had kept us safe. It was the fear of breaking them. And now, we had already crossed that line. And whatever was coming next, we wouldn't escape. I thought I was free. But looking at the road ahead, I wasn't so sure anymore. I was still gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white, heart racing in my chest. The town, the nightmare, it felt so far behind me now, but the weight of what I'd just done hung heavy in the air. There was no turning back. Not anymore. The strange passenger, the one who'd started all of this, was sitting beside me, quiet for the first time since he'd gotten into my cab. His wet duffel bag rested on the floor between us, and the air in the car was thick with the smell of old leather and damp earth. I couldn't bring myself to ask him anything. I didn't want to hear the answers. For the first time in what felt like years, the road in front of me seemed ordinary. Just asphalt, stretching out in the dim light of the headlights. Nothing was warping, nothing was changing, and for a moment, I thought maybe the whole thing had been a hallucination. Maybe I had imagined it, the face in the rearview mirror, the way the trees had seemed to move, the whispers on the radio. Maybe it was all just the heat, the stress, or maybe even the pressure of living in this damn town too long. But when I glanced at the stranger again, I knew better. His eyes were too calm, too knowing, and they never left my face. He had been quiet, but I could feel his presence like a weight on my chest, pulling me towards something I wasn't ready for. "Do you think we're safe now?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out the window, his expression unreadable. I could tell he was trying to decide how to phrase whatever it was he was about to say. "Safe," he said slowly, like the word tasted foreign in his mouth. "That's an illusion." I swallowed hard, trying to focus on the road. The trees that lined the highway seemed to be standing too still, almost unnervingly so. They weren't moving like they should have been in the wind. Not a single leaf fluttered. It was like the world had stopped. "Is it over?" I asked, but the question felt empty in my mouth. He didn't look at me when he answered. "It's never over. It doesn't work like that." I wasn't sure what he meant, but the feeling of unease crept back into my bones. It was like something was watching us, just beyond the trees. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled, and I couldn't stop glancing at the rearview mirror. Every time I looked, I half expected to see that other face again. The one that hadn't been mine. "Why didn't you tell me about the rules?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. He didn't flinch, didn't even blink. "You had to learn them yourself. That's how it works here." I hated the way he spoke. Like he knew something I didn't, something I wasn't ready for. I slammed my foot down on the gas, wanting to put some distance between us and the town. The tires hummed against the road, the only sound in the car. But the silence was deafening. The world outside was too still. Even the stars above felt wrong, too bright, too sharp. And that's when I saw it. In the corner of my eye, barely noticeable at first, there was movement. Something in the trees. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but as I blinked, I saw it again. Something was moving in the woods, slithering, shifting. Far too fast, too unnatural to be a deer or anything I'd ever seen before. I slowed the car, heart hammering in my chest. My hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel, staring at the trees. The movement was closer now, just beyond the shadowed line of the woods. I couldn't see it clearly, but I felt it. Something was watching us, something not of this world. "Drive faster," the stranger said, his voice sharp now, commanding. I didn't need to be told twice. My foot pressed harder on the pedal, the engine roaring as the car surged forward. The trees seemed to reach out toward us, like they were trying to drag us back, but I didn't dare look away from the road. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and my pulse thundered in my ears. We weren't alone. I looked at the stranger, but his eyes were fixed ahead, unfazed by the creeping terror surrounding us. "What is that thing?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He turned to me then, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't calm or controlled. It was fear, raw and naked. "It's not a thing," he said, his voice low, almost mournful. "It's the price. The cost." I didn't understand. My mind was racing, trying to piece it all together, but it was like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. Nothing made sense anymore. "Keep driving," the stranger repeated. "Don't stop. Not until you're out." I wasn't sure how much farther I could go, but I didn't have a choice. Something, I couldn't even begin to explain it, was pulling us backward. The road ahead felt endless, and the trees seemed to lean closer with every passing second. The air itself felt thick, like I was driving through a fog, except there was no fog. Just darkness. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything stopped. I blinked, and the road ahead was clear again. The trees were still. The shadows were normal. We were out, or at least I thought we were. But I didn't know if the town had truly let go of me, or if something else was still following us. I glanced at the stranger. He was staring out the window again, silent as before. I realized then that I wasn't the one who was free. We both were running, but from something that would never let us go. It's been a week since I left Denton Hollow. I should feel free, right? I'm out of that suffocating town, away from the madness, the rules, the strange sense that something was always waiting to catch me. But the truth is, there's no escaping it. Not really. I thought the roads would feel different once I crossed the boundary, that I'd breathe easier, that the tension would loosen from my shoulders. I figured Denton Hollow was some twisted place that needed to be left behind. But now, as I drive further from the town, I can't shake this feeling. The feeling that it's still there, following me, watching me, even if I can't see it. I glance into the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something in the back seat, someone staring back at me. The stranger is gone, but I still feel his presence. I remember his calm, unsettling voice, and how he told me not to look back. He was right, of course. I should have listened. I should have let him go at the crossroads and kept driving, kept pretending that I wasn't already too deep into something I didn't understand. But here I am, driving alone. The headlights cut through the dark, lighting up empty roads. The hum of the engine is the only sound, steady and dull, but the silence in the air is thick, almost too thick, like the world's holding its breath, waiting. I've been driving for hours, but the landscape outside hasn't changed. It all feels too familiar, even though I know I should be in a new place. Then it happens. I see it in the mirror. A face. Not in the back seat, but in the reflection just over my shoulder. It's fleeting at first, like a shadow in the glass, but it's there. I can't explain how I know, but I do. It's the same face, the same grin I saw in the rearview mirror before. The grin of someone who's seen something far worse than I ever will, someone who knows the kind of terror that lingers in the bones. I blink, but it's still there. I look harder, trying to focus, but the face is gone. I'm left staring at the empty space behind me, at the same empty road stretching out into the dark. My breath catches in my throat. There's no one in the back seat. There shouldn't be anyone in the back seat. I'm alone, right? My hands tighten around the wheel, and I try to shake it off, but that feeling, it doesn't go away. The feeling that someone's out there, following me, walking beside the car in the shadows. I tell myself it's just my mind playing tricks. It's been a stressful week, a long ride, and I'm tired. But deep down, I know I'm lying to myself. The rules don't just disappear when you leave the town. I don't know what it was about Denton Hollow, some pact, some agreement that was made long before I ever showed up, but it's not something you can outrun. It's something you inherit, something you're tied to. The stranger knew it. Alex knew it. Hell, I knew it. But I didn't want to believe it. Not until it was too late. I look back into the rearview mirror again, hoping, praying that I won't see anything. But there it is. That second face. It's clearer now, closer, as if it's leaning in to watch me. A cold sweat breaks out along my neck. I force myself to focus on the road ahead, trying to ignore it, but it's like the eyes are boring into the back of my skull. I can feel them, even if I don't see them. I'm not sure how long I've been driving. The lights are starting to blur, the miles blending together into a haze. It's all too quiet, too still. My heart's racing, my palms are slick with sweat, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm not alone. A sharp noise snaps me from my thoughts, like something tapping on the window. I jerk my head toward the sound, but there's nothing there. The night air feels colder now, the weight of it pressing in on me, suffocating. I don't know what to do anymore. I've crossed the town line. I'm miles away from Denton Hollow, but it's still with me. The rules are still with me. I can't outrun them. I can't escape what I've done, what I've seen, what I've become a part of. The stranger's words echo in my head. The rules follow you, no matter where you go. I thought I'd left it all behind when I left Denton Hollow, but now I see that was just the beginning. I glance in the mirror one more time, and there it is. The face, closer now, watching me with eyes that aren't human. My breath catches in my throat, and I slam my foot on the brake, but the car doesn't stop. It just keeps going, as if the road itself has a will of its own. I try to scream, but the sound gets stuck in my chest. The headlights flicker, casting shadows on the trees that seem to stretch unnaturally long. The air grows colder still, and the world feels like it's bending, like reality itself is warping around me. I'm not free. I'll never be free. I turn the wheel, trying to make a desperate escape, but the road is endless. It stretches out in front of me, an infinite loop, one I can never get off. I'm stuck in Denton Hollow, whether I like it or not. And now, it's not just the town that's haunting me. It's the rules. They're part of me now too. I look in the mirror once more. It's too late to run. The face is right there, staring back at me, and it's smiling.